President Trump warned of what could happen if we keep erasing history.
This week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week, and is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Oh, man, was he ahead of his time. And now it's happening. A historic church in Virginia, where George Washington frequented. He worshiped there. They will remove a memorial plaque honoring him because it makes some members feel unwelcome. But where do we draw the line? Here to debate, Fox News contributor David Webb, along with journalist, radio talk show host Jamila Bey. Jamila, is this a good move?
Well, let's be real. Fewer and fewer Americans are religious at all, Christian at all. 30% of Americans under 30 don't go to church anymore. This church needs to make sure it keeps its pews filled, and if by removing the plaque of George Washington, it makes everybody feel happy and comfortable and gets those coffers filled, that's what they're going to do. It's their right to choose it.
David, should we lose our founding father to make everybody happy?
Sure. You know what? Let's do it. Let's just make Jamila happy. By the way, those numbers have nothing to do with the issue. What we're doing here, look, the president's right. And the dishonesty in the debate is, do we remove history, period? Do we not tell it? To Jamila, I would ask this question. If we're to apply the logic of the perpetually pissed off, which is what we're getting, then when are they going to protest said mosques? Because Muslims own slaves, Muhammad owned slaves. Jamila, if you go, I'll join you right there and we'll stand and protest together. I have a national radio show and you can talk to the nation. But you won't do it. They choose easy targets. They choose easy targets like the church, ignoring the fact that it's about history and nothing else. And for those that are offended by a plaque somewhere in a church, there's going to be something that offends you about the church in general. So you had best leave the church, period, because of the history of religion.
Sure. And Jamila, I would also say this. I understand you're not wanting to upset people, and no one in this generation
I've never been invited to come on and protest against mosques and Muslim slave owners. I would happily do that. Why?
And that goes well. You'll be the army of one. Here's the story. Whoa, just a second.
No, I wouldn't.
Here's the thing. You'd be the army of one, believe me. No one's going to a mosque to protest Mohammedan slavery. Last time they made a cartoon, they started shooting people.
There would be no America.
There would be no America, Jamila, without George Washington. It's not okay to make people feel better about themselves. Here is Charles Barkley on the whole debate dating back to when Robert E. Lee and what he was like, how he feels about it. Listen.
I'm not going to waste my time trying to worry about these statues they got all over the country. I'm 54 years old. I've never thought about those statues a day in my life. I think if you ask most black people, to be honest, they ain't thought a day in their life about those stupid statues.
Jamila, where do you stand?
Well, I'm no basketball expert at all, and I know that that's the area of expertise that Charles Barkley comes from. He certainly doesn't speak for all people of African descent in America. So that's his opinion. That's what he thinks. I'm not 54 years old, so I don't have the length of time to think about these statues. To be honest, I think that this is one little tiny church in Alexandria, Virginia. They decide that they want to remove a plaque from their pew. It's not erasing history. It's one church making a decision about the decor.
You know, Jamila, you've got to be honest here. You've got to be honest here, all right? And
I'm happy to be honest. I don't see the point here. I think that this is
clever. Well, if I can make a point, then let me make a point here. The point of this is that in telling history, we have to be accurate. In telling history, for instance, you've stated in the past when it comes to the church and to civil rights that humans did the work and the church was not really a part of it, that the church keeps African Americans, as you put it, in mental slavery. That's your opinion. Charles Barkley's entitled to his opinion. I'm entitled to mine. So is every other American. But the fact is that we have the perpetually pissed off in this country running around, and if you apply their logic, and if you support, yes or no, Jamila rather, do you support gay rights? Yes or no?
I guess I haven't really thought about it.
Okay,
I
so for those in our history
you know,
who opposed gay marriage at one point, then they should be removed from the public square, applying the logic of the perpetually pissed off, and that would include Martin Luther King Jr. and Barack Obama, because at one time they were against gay marriage. At what point do we leave history where it is? Because we are not static as a society. There's evolution. There's time and milieu, and when the protesters go back to Africa, where blacks also sold slaves, protest everybody equally or none at all, but the hypocrisy is clear to most rational Americans.
All right.
If we're going to talk about African slavery versus the peculiar institution that was chattel slavery in the U.S., those are two completely different things.
Who sold the slaves, Jamila?
And that is, there were a lot of, let's look at England, let's look at France, let's look at Portugal, let's look at
did blacks sell slaves? Did blacks own slaves in America? A census in America had blacks owning 3,500 slaves down in Louisiana at one time. Either you apply your logic across the board, or the fact is your logic is not applied.
This is a complete distraction from the point. A church has every right to take a plaque out of its pew. If we want to talk about chattel slavery in the U.S. and this systemic disenfranchisement that continues to exist because at 3/5 the labor of a white person, I and those from whom I'm descended were even considered human beings.
Thanks so much.
I can't take you seriously. I don't feel disenfranchised, and I don't feel like Jamila fits a person. I'm 100% American.
Thanks so much.
Evidence to show
Quiet down. All right, we'll have to move you out. Ready?
I'm 100% American.
Sorry, I had to come to that. Great debate. The problem with removing his plaque, it's George Washington's church. It's not just any church. It's where he was.